You okay, Commander? Joker asked as Shepard slouched near the entrance to the cockpit and just took a moment to stare out the viewports into space. Just fine, Joker. Just need a moment where I'm not trying to ape a politician with a vast amount of experience I don't have. Shepard smiled at the pilot. And besides that, today was just a lot. I know what you mean. Fighting through an entire battlefield to find one person. Mysterious space fleets coming out of nowhere? And that's not even mentioning the Reapers. I know we dealt with stuff like that all the time in the old days, but we usually spaced it out at least a little. Looks like we're not that lucky this time around. Shepard smirked a bit. At least EDI got a new toy out of everything. Joker side-eyed the Cerberus-made robotic infiltrator body they had picked up in the Mars facility that their resident AI had taken over and started puppeting, now sitting in the co-pilot's chair. Yeah, thanks for not telling me about that, by the way. I just about crapped my pants when she walked in. That made Shepard raise an eyebrow in turn. You seriously didn't know she was going to do that? Okay, let me put it this way. If I knew EDI was going to install herself into a sexy robot body, do you honestly think I'd be able to keep quiet about it? Joker held his hands up like he was framing a picture. Look at that. I would have baked a cake. I am right here, Jeff. EDI responded dryly without taking her new eyes off the panel in front of her. Yes you are, EDI. Yes you are. Shepard snorted at the back and forth between the two of them before getting serious again. Either of you managed to dig anything up about the fleet that appeared at Palaven? Not much, Shepard. Very few of the sensors in the system were in a position to get a detailed look, but we can confirm that the design of the vessels does not match with any known race registered by the Citadel. So we know nothing about them? Damn it, was it actually a first contact situation? That would be an absolute nightmare. Especially with a group that could put up an even fight with a Reaper detachment. A new species wouldn't know about the dangers of Reaper tech and indoctrination, and even more critically, might not believe it if they were told. That could lead to another race becoming pawns of the Reapers and being able to launch surprise attacks deep into Citadel space because all defense fleets would be on guard against Reaper ships, not the newcomers. Not exactly. Joker interjected. What do you mean? I thought you just said the Council has no record of them. That is correct, Commander. The Council has no records of them. EDI said smoothly. However, there is one ship that shares several design elements in Cerberus's databases. A wreck that was discovered on Lorik a year ago. Shepard made the connection. Wait, are you saying Revan? She trailed off. Joker nodded. Looks like our Dark Overlady has been pretty busy. Too bad we don't have her number anymore. It'd be really useful to have those ships on speed dial. Right. The Normandy's systems had been scrubbed when the Alliance had refitted her. And Shepard's own contact list had been deleted when she gave herself up after the Alpha Relay incident. Shepard would have to check with Liara later to see if any of her contacts had Revan or Tolly's contact information. Or failing that, anyone close enough to them to pass a message, because Joker was right, they needed every ship they could get their hands on if they were going to push the Reapers off Earth. Well, hopefully we can get in contact with her soon. She did promise to help with the Reapers. Shepard commented. Did we manage to see how they compared in battle? Only partially. EDI reported. We are missing most of the final engagement, but it seems that in a direct confrontation the new ships we observed can match a Reaper without being destroyed. The commander perked up. Revan can beat them then? In small-scale engagements with equal numbers at least. EDI temporized. Too bad the Reapers don't fight fair. Joker added. There was some really impressive flying over there, almost like their captains could see what the Reapers were going to do before they did it, and they still ended up needing to limp away because the Reapers sent more ships after them. Shepard still ended up smiling. Yes, but Revan's fleet proved we can fight the Reapers toe-to-toe. It'll be bloody, but now we have a plan B if the Prothean superweapon turns out to be a dud. It would be an incredibly bloody and long fight, but if they could build enough ships like those to avoid getting simply overrun by the Reapers, then the galaxy could eventually win. Or at least she hoped so. She simply had no idea how hard it was to produce ships like the ones they had seen, but it was another thread of hope when they only had one other before. No point in speculating right now, she thought to herself as she turned to leave. I have enough to worry about trying to convince the Krogans to help us out. Oh, Commander, I found something suspicious. Do you have a minute? The voice specialist Samantha Trainer stopped her on the way to the elevator. Shepard paused at the call, since it was pretty rare for the specialist to initiate a conversation. They would talk every now and then thanks to the commander's habit of trying to make time to speak with every member of her crew, but it was obvious Trainer, despite her rank, was more comfortable with lab work and a more civilian environment. Something Shepard had no issue respecting, since Liara and Talai had started off the same way, and Shepard was even making allowances for the journalist tagging along with the Normandy, but Trainer was simply taking longer to adjust to living on a ship than any of them. That made it obvious she was uncomfortable on the Normandy. Sure, what do you got? I found something while scanning Alliance channels. Grisham Academy is requesting help. The Reaper invasion front will hit them soon. An academy had access to Alliance channels. That was a bit surprising. I know the place. We needed to send a young man there after an incident. That was probably the most polite way she could describe the Project Overlord fiasco. But I thought it would have closed down already once the Reapers were confirmed. Trainer shrugged. Some of their work has Alliance support. It may be why they stayed. And explain why they had access to military channels. Fine. All right, and what's suspicious about them? I first noticed them because of a distress signal sent by the Academy that was answered by a Turian evac transport. So normally I'd say we don't need to do anything. But something sounded off in the Turian signal. I had Edie run an analysis. Trainer pulled up a bunch of charts and infographics on her terminal that meant absolutely nothing to Shepard. It's fake. Trainer already had Shepard's attention. Now she had her interest. Fake? Edie thinks it's Cerberus. She said the faked Turian signal was similar to one that lured you to a collector ship. The specialist trailed off, looking at Shepard with curiosity. Unfortunately, the commander wasn't in the mood to explain. Long story. Trainer got the hint. In any event, whoever faked the signal wants us to think Grisham Academy's being evacuated. But I believe they are still in danger. Shepard was impressed. Between the chaos of the war and Cerberus's own skill at hiding their tracks, she bet no one else had picked up on this. Good catch. If this really is Cerberus, hopefully this operation is worth investigating. The specialist continued as if Shepard hadn't spoken. It could be simple disinformation. Trainer. Shepard interrupted. Good catch. She emphasized, which got her an uncertain smile from the darker-skinned woman. Thank you, Commander. Now Shepard just had to decide if a detour was worth it when they desperately needed to get to Tuchanka yesterday. The Spectre and Commander said no, that anything that delayed getting support for the war was a lower priority and would have to wait. The human side told both those sides to fuck off. Jane Shepard wasn't about to allow Cerberus to get their hands on a bunch of kids for whatever twisted purpose they had in mind. Tuchanka would have to wait for now. Edie, I have a course change. Oh. This is the last of the damage reports? Revan asked rhetorically as another datapad was handed to her. Yes, ma'am. Her secretary responded. All ships reported in. The Sith Empress dismissed him with a wave of her hand and began scanning the reports. They were better than she expected, but worse than she hoped. Besides the Harrowers, nearly every ship had blown at least one shield generator and several escorts had hull damage from where the Reaper's powerful main weapons had broken through. None of them had been damaged to the point that they couldn't move under their own power, but at least 2 were going to have to return to a docking station for repairs, and another 3 needed new components before they could afford to get into another major confrontation. So 5 ships' mission killed in exchange for the near-complete destruction of a Reaper battle group roughly the same size. In theory it was a resounding victory, and it was, but Revan reminded herself it wasn't enough. She had lost 5 ships at the end of a battle where they had surprised the Reapers with technology they were not prepared for, had Revan's farsight countering most of their tactics, and had not even engaged every Reaper in the system. Yes, she had won the battle. But the moment the Reapers decided to attack her forces with overwhelming numbers was the moment the only strategy she had left was to run. Revan needed more hulls. More importantly, she needed hulls that could handle the stresses a large turbolaser battery put on a ship and wouldn't take months trying to refit everything. Her Geth and Quarian subjects were working tirelessly to produce as many warships as they could, but reinforcing the ramshackle Quarian fleet or redesigning Geth ships for organic habitation were almost as much work as simply breaking them down and building Imperial ships instead. She needed something already tough enough that she could simply slap a few weapons on, was built for organics, and wasn't in use by a faction that would demand things from the Empire Revan wasn't willing to give. Unfortunately, that meant many of the wrecks that populated planets like Kahlus were unusable for her purposes. Oh, the metal was absolutely useful, and now that Revan remembered the garbage planet the Normandy had visited in an attempt to recruit a Krogan warlord, she was absolutely going to send several transport ships to salvage everything they could, but it remained simply another source of resources, not a solution to her problems. Although, Krogan. Revan was forced to put those thoughts on hold as the holotank in the middle of the room began indicating a call coming through. Seconds later the ghostly blue hologram of Admiral Han Gerrel appeared. "Admiral, is there a problem?" "Greetings, Empress Revan. I'm sorry to say there is," Gerrel said solemnly. "Reapers? I would almost prefer that. We've seen an uptick of pirate attacks in the Terminus systems. We've been able to repel any that approach our territory for now, but it seems only a matter of time before they attack a world we've claimed without a defense force in place." Revan frowned. "I left several Geth fleets under your control. Are you saying they aren't enough to deter a few pirates?" Gerrel rolled his shoulders uncomfortably. "Under normal circumstances, absolutely. But I believe the pirates are being backed by Cerberus. I have enough ships to protect our interests, but not enough to rout them out without leaving gaps in our defense." Cerberus again. That human supremacist group was quickly becoming a thorn in her side. "I see, then I suppose you have a plan to deal with them?" "Of a sort. Your battle group would make a great deterrent against the pirates and would be free to hunt down the slower groups. A Harrower and a few escorts split up over our trade lanes would make entire systems much safer." Revan could see where the Admiral was coming from. Unfortunately, that was assuming her battle group was at full strength, which it was not. It also assumed that Revan could split her group up at the moment. The Empress could spare 1 or 2 ships at maximum. Unlike the Normandy, her Harrower couldn't slip in and out of systems unnoticed. And after the victory she earned at Palaven, she had no doubt the Reapers would jump at the opportunity to destroy her if she gave an opening. Which meant escorts. Especially if she was going to secure the hulls she needed should she find them. She couldn't afford to split her group up further and still pursue her goals. "I understand your concern, Admiral. Unfortunately, I simply cannot spare the ships. At most I can direct the damaged ships I have to a world with the capabilities to repair them, and you can use them as stand-ins for the defense fleet to patrol as you see fit." "Empress, that would leave hundreds of smaller ships vulnerable to these pirates," Gerrel objected. "I understand," Revan said evenly. "But it is a sacrifice we will need to make if we are going to stand a chance against the Reapers when they turn their full attention to us." And it wasn't like Revan wanted to let pirates run freely around the Terminus systems. "I cannot spare more ships right now, but I have an idea that will give us a boost in the number of ships we can field. Tell me, do you know anything about the demilitarized Krogan fleet?" "The Krogans? Not much, unfortunately. At the end of the rebellions, no one trusted them with a war ship, so the weapons and drives were removed, but beyond that I have no idea. Wait, you think that the hulls might still be around? Yes. Revan had no issue confirming his suspicion. No other species but the Elcor are large enough to comfortably use the hulls, and from what I understand they do not like space. That would solve our hull shortage. If you can get them to move, that is. Weapons we can refit anywhere, but we would need to install the drive cores wherever they are now. Lightly to Kanka. And the Krogans won't like it if they catch you trying to simply take them. Revan clasped her hands behind her back. Let me worry about the Krogans, Admiral. You focus on curtailing the pirates as best you can. And if you can find proof of Cerberus's involvement, inform me immediately. Yes, ma'am. The Admiral nodded one final time and the holotank winked off. Mass effect transition completed, Empress. We've arrived at the Aralok system. Enemy presence confirmed. Reaper signatures detected around the 1st, 4th, and 6th planets. They are moving towards us. Numbers? 1 capital ship per group. 14 destroyers in the first group, 20 in the second, and only 8 in the third. They weren't expecting anyone to come to this system. Revan decided after hearing the numbers of enemies they faced. Oh, it was certainly overkill for anything that would normally pass through the Aralok system. But for all the destructive power a Reaper ship had, they were simply too small when it came to the size of a planet. Unless the Reapers received reinforcements, it would take months, possibly years, before they could completely scour one world completely with all the forces they had in system, and they clearly weren't even doing that. Of course, that might not be a concern for the giant droids. Time meant something very different for things that operated on cycles thousands of years long. They still outnumber us 4-1. Her tactical officer cautioned from his station. A reasonable point considering they were down to 7 escorts after Palaven, even if the Harrowers were mostly untouched. No, they'll outnumber us 2-1 in one battle, and are outmatched in the second. Revan countered as she used the Force to observe the system. Not all of the Reapers were moving to intercept her battle group, some continued to linger around the planets they were located at when they translated into the system. No doubt considering whatever task they were occupied as more important than hunting down the ships that had appeared. Set an intercept course for the group near the 6th planet. We'll destroy them before they can link up with the rest of their forces. Harrowers lead the charge and iron cannons disperse between all enemy vessels. Oh. Revan didn't have much to say about the first battle in the Aralok system. The Reapers still didn't have time to come up with a counter to her ship's iron cannons, so once again they were forced to fight partially disabled and were quickly picked off by the sheer amount of firepower Revan's battle group could bring to bear when faced with similar numbers. But that didn't mean the Reapers hadn't learned from the battle. The ships that had broken off from the 1st and 4th planets had met up, but instead of forming one group and moving to confront Revan's own ships, they had split into 3 subgroups. Theoretically, Revan's battle group would be able to easily crush any individual group with minimal damage, but practically her forces couldn't afford to engage any one of them without quickly being surrounded by the remaining 2. It was the perfect tactic to counter what Revan had displayed so far. We could perform a micro-jump to FTR that would put us right on top of one of the groups. One of her officers suggested. If we deploy all our spacefighter wings, we should be able to destroy the Reaper ships before the other 2 get in range. Then it would be another battle between numerically similar groups, even if we would have a disadvantaged deployment. We'd have to use the hyperdrives. Conventional FTR isn't accurate enough for that. Another argued. And we were ordered not to reveal those yet. Technology not used is technology that is wasted. We have the perfect opportunity to give another blow to the Boshtets. And doing so would have every Reaper hunt us down until we were destroyed. Revan quickly reminded him. Fear and arrogance after the last battle were clouding some of her officers' judgment, and Revan couldn't exactly blame them too harshly for it. They had seen the homeworld of the Turians destroyed by the same forces they had fought 3 times now and beaten with minimal to moderate difficulty. It was understandable that they wanted to keep pressing the attack and end the Reapers before they could do more damage. So Revan needed to keep a firm hold on her more aggressive captains until they were ready to actually go on the offensive, and unfortunately that simply wasn't going to happen in Aralok. We are here for one, maybe two, reasons. To retrieve the hulls of the Krogan's navy and bring them back for refitting. Along with potentially convincing the Krogans to ally with the Empire, since they would make incredible shock troopers, but that was a secondary goal. We don't even need to deal with the Reapers until we are ready to attempt making a move on the hulls. With all due respect, Empress. One of the more stubborn officers spoke up. If that is the case and we are not going to engage the Reaper forces, is there anything left for us to do in system, or should we just return to Rannoch to gather crews to help move the hulls? We still need to negotiate for the hulls from the Krogan. Revan replied, allowing a bit of amusement to seep into her voice. We do. The Geth agree with Officer Morris, Revan Empress. One of the Geth units joined the conversation. If asset retrieval is priority, there is no need to discuss with the Krogan. They do not have the ability to stop us from doing so while dealing with the old machines. And it's precisely because of that it is crucial that we ask before taking action. Revan replied. Just like the Quarians, the Krogan have been continuously exploited while being largely marginalized by the Council. While we probably could simply take everything once we deal with the Reapers in the system, it would hardly be a good start to an alliance. With that little insight explained most, if not all, of the officers suddenly became much more understanding about Revan's approach. Even if the galaxy was under attack by omnicidal murder machines, that did not mean that the exploitation and slights from the Council races had magically been forgotten. Set a course past Tukanka. I will head to the surface via a shuttle. And the fleet? As long as the Reapers don't attempt to make a move, keep allowing them to pursue you. Don't get drawn into standing fights and keep mobile. I will call when it's time to extract from the planet. And with that settled, Revan turned on her heel and began marching towards the nearest shuttle bay. All that remained was to identify who had any authority on the ruined landscape of Tukanka, and if they would even be open to negotiations, or if Revan would have to organize a sudden transfer of power to meet her goals. Oh! Shepard moved as quickly as she could down the hall without making a sound, Liara and Garrus right on her tail. They didn't have a whole lot of time considering Cerberus had beaten them here, but they also didn't have enough people to fight through the entirety of Grissom Academy while trying to reach the area the remaining students were hiding out in. Thankfully, most of the academy was actually empty due to the Reaper arrival, so they didn't have to figure out how to sneak hundreds of people around a Cerberus cruiser, but trying to find 20 or so that had trained to be biotic artillery of all fucking things and keep them safe, was still going to be difficult. Director Sanders had painted a fairly grim picture overall about the students' chances, which was already an understatement considering her squad had found the older woman trapped in a server room about to be executed by the Cerberus squad the moment they broke through the door. Riley Bellarmine, drop the barrier, now. Shepard momentarily froze at the sound of a Cerberus soldier barking orders before automatically ducking into cover before peeking out to assess the situation. A single older teenager was protecting himself behind a domed biotic barrier as two Cerberus troopers were staring down at him from behind raised weapons. Nobody's going to hurt you. The file says we need you alive. The second trooper said in a failed attempt at being comforting. But your sister? She's optional. You give us trouble, we'll find her. If Shepard wasn't already convinced that Cerberus was more out for itself than for humanity, that would have done it. Hard to convince people you are the good guys when your partially indoctrinated cyborg shock troopers were going around threatening teenagers to come with them or they were going to hurt your family. She gave a quick signal to her squad mates and did a silent 3 count before she and Liara ducked out of cover and hit both troopers with a biotic pull. The troopers barely had time to shout in surprise before Garrus put 2 blaster bolts in their heads and silenced them. Shepard turned to the now very pale teenager and gently stepped between him and the bodies. He might have seen worse by now, but there was no reason to rub it in his face. "There may be more nearby," she said in a firm voice, drawing his attention even more. "I want you to play dead for a bit and then get to Carly Sanders in security. Do you understand?" "Oh, okay, but my sister Shana is out here somewhere, too." "Don't worry, we'll find her," Shepard promised, wishing she could spend more time making sure the kid would be okay. But the area was mostly secure and he had a clear shot back to safety. Shepard couldn't be sure the others could wait even that long, something that was unfortunately proven true when barely 2 minutes after they had left Riley and moved forward, Shepard saw a young woman getting gunned down from behind by another group of troopers. And they didn't seem to care much that they were shooting at children. "Watch the headshots. Orders are to take them alive. Check the file. Who was it?" Shepard didn't even have to order her squad to open fire before the Cerberus thugs were shot to pieces by Liara's SMG, Garrus blaster rifle, and her own shotgun. Their bodies had barely hit the floor before the Spectre rushed to the fallen student, Medigal in hand, but it was too late. "Shepard, contact." She turned to see another squad of troopers turn the corner even as one snapped a shot off at a target around a corner she couldn't see. Likely at another student. Well, at least now she had a target for the feelings burning in her chest. "Liara, Singularity. On it." The Asari scientist put a glowing mass of biotic energy just beyond the doorway they were facing and almost immediately played hell with the Cerberus squad's positions. The two that had stacked up against the doorframe had been yanked backwards and were now flailing helplessly, and another had dropped his rifle to desperately hang onto the back of a row of chairs that were bolted to the floor. The rest ranked high enough to actually have kinetic shields that let them ignore the biotic attack as the mass effect field and kinetic barrier interfered with one another. Not that the shields were a major issue for her or her squad. Garrus's gifted rifle shared the same property Geth plasma weapons did in mostly ignoring shields while burning through the field at an incredible rate. Neither Shepard or Liara had anything similar, and unless they ran into Revan while she was in a giving mood, wouldn't anytime soon, but Spectre and the Shadow Broker could still afford to get their hands on some very impressive weapon mods. The Cerberus hardsuits certainly protected them longer than anything the Alliance typically fielded. But longer wasn't enough to turn the tables. Cerberus soldiers put down, Shepard moved up along with her squad to check on whatever the squad had initially shot at. Sure enough, there was another student, another young girl even, huddled in a corner holding her side. "Stay back. I'll," she gasped as Shepard ran up to her. "Hey, it's all right. My name is Commander Shepard," she said to the girl. "We aren't going to let them hurt you." "Goddess, she's bleeding badly." "Shepard, we need to help her fast," Liara exclaimed. "I've got some Medigal," Garrus said as he moved closer with an injector. "Here, let me." The girl started squirming as the heavily armed Turian started approaching, so Shepard gently moved her face so they were eye to eye. "Hey, we're here to help," she repeated. "Can you tell me your name?" Shana. Shana Bellarmine." Shepard forced a smile. "Well, Shana. I'm glad we found you so quickly. We just sent your brother to go meet up with Director Sanders at security. Once we get you patched up you can go see him. You think you can do that?" Oh, yeah, I think I can. I just need to rest a minute." Shana's eyes darted towards the hallway Shepard's team had just passed through. "Sally was right behind me, is she?" The smile slipped off Shepard's face even as Garrus finished patching the girl up. "Sorry, Cerberus got her before we could do anything." Damn, Shana hissed under her breath, fighting back tears. "Promise me you'll make them pay for this, will you?" "Damn right we will."